If you've been saving in an RRSP and you're in or nearing retirement, you probably know that you have to convert your RSP to a RIF, a retirement income fund, by the end of the year you turn 71. But should you wait until then or do it earlier? We've recently had a few people ask, what's the point of converting before age 71? So in this video, I want to walk through why, for 99% of you watching this video, it probably makes sense to convert your RSP to a RIF right when you retire, and how doing it right away could help you avoid thousands in unnecessary taxes over the long run. So let's just first cover off, what is an RRSP? It's a registered retirement savings plan. When you retire, you need to convert it to a RRIF, a registered retirement income fund. It's basically transitioning the fund from a savings account to an income account. Now, you're required to make this conversion from the RSP to a RRIF by the end of the year you turn age 71, and in the year you turn 72, you have to start drawing out a minimum amount out of that account. And the idea is, you've spent all these years saving up this account, they're going to now force you to start drawing it down. But the question remains, if you retire before 71, which is the majority of you watching our videos, should you actually convert your RSP to a RRIF when you retire, or at least prior to age 71? Now, when you convert or move your money from the RSP to a RRIF, you're not triggering a taxable event or really any changes other than the name of the account. Think of it like an umbrella. Currently, your umbrella is called an RSP, and all your investments or whatever you hold in your RSP lies under that umbrella. When you set up your RRIF, you're just removing that umbrella and putting a RRIF umbrella over it, but you're not actually triggering any sale or transactions or anything like that. So when you set up your RRIF at your financial institution that you work with, it's just a simple transition of all of those investment holdings that you have under your RSP over to your RRIF. No taxable event, no fees, quite simple to do. Once you've converted your RSP to a RRIF, whatever amount you have in your RRIF, the following year after you convert it, so let's say you're 60 years old and you convert your RSP to a RRIF, the following calendar year, you're going to be forced to take out a minimum amount. Now that minimum amount, it's a percentage based on the year-end value. So at age 65, as an example, you're required to take out 4% of your account. So if you have $200,000 in your RRIF account, they're going to force you to take out $8,000. That's the minimum amount you need to take out. You could take out the whole $200,000, but you're forced to take at least that $8,000 out. Now you might be thinking, Adam, if I retire before 71 and I want money out of my RSP, why not just pull it out of my RSP versus converting it to a RRIF and doing all this work before I actually have to? Well, there's a few reasons why you want to do that. First off, many financial institutions actually charge a withdrawal fee on an RSP because an RSP is a savings plan, registered retirement savings plan. So if you take money out of there, there's often a fee, $25 up to $50 typically, to take money out. Whereas an income fund, a RRIF, there's no fee. So benefit number one is to avoid the fees. And if you're drawing a monthly or bi-weekly payment, that fee can add up very quickly. So that's reason number one. Now, reason number two is at age 65 onward, money that comes out of a RRIF account qualifies for the pension income tax credit. If you take money out of an RSP, it does not qualify for that tax credit. The third reason, and for anyone that's married, common law, or can income split, your RRIF income, 65 and onward, can be split for income tax purposes. Where if you're drawing money from an RSP, again, it cannot be split for income tax purposes. So there's three really good reasons why you might want to start looking at converting your RSP to a RRIF even prior to age 71. So again, you want to keep in mind, a lot of you are not converting to a RRIF because there's a minimum amount you need to pull out. I had a conversation with a prospect today about that. And I said, look, don't be concerned about that because if you have a true good tax plan for your retirement, you will be pulling more than your minimum RRIF amount. Too many of you are waiting to pull money out of your RSP. I would say every day I talk to somebody where it's like, yeah, I retired, I got my TFSA, I got some cash on the side. I'm going to live off that for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then eventually I'll touch my RSPs. The reality is you're pushing a tax bill down the road. We live in a progressive tax system, meaning that you can earn a fair amount of money tax-free or in a very low tax bracket. And by having no income, you're not taking advantage of that. And so you actually want to trigger some taxable income. What we want to do, and I can tell a good plan from one thing, and that is, what is your average or effective tax rate through retirement? Is your average tax rate very level? And if it is, that's a good start to a retirement plan. Doesn't mean it's a perfect plan, but it's a really good start. Whereas if you have a roller coaster, zero tax rate, then a lot, then zero, then a lot, which I see quite often coming out of the financial institutions, it's typically a really bad plan, and you're actually cutting more checks to CRA than you should be. And we all want to pay less tax. Paying less tax typically means that money's coming back into our pocket to enjoy retirement. So again, you want to convert to a RRIF to start drawing income out, getting taxable income to smooth out your tax rate through retirement. And for a lot of you retiring before 71, the idea would be to delay CPP, and in that meantime, draw down your RRSP, draw down that RRIF account. So again, let's say you're 65 years old and you're not sure, should I start CPP, take my RRSP, where should I draw money from? But the concept here isn't just delaying your Canadian pension plan. It's, yes, delay it, but in that time, we've now given you 5 years to more aggressively draw down your RRIF account. Again, another reason to convert your RRSP to a RRIF, start drawing that down more aggressively. The benefit of that is by delaying your CPP, obviously you're getting a guaranteed 8.4% rate of return, something you can't find on the marketplace. Draw down your RRSP. So again, don't worry about that minimum amount. Don't worry about a 4% rule or anything like that. You want to convert your RRSP to a RRIF. 99% of you watching this video, if you're retired and you have an RRSP, you should be converting to a RRIF and start drawing that down more than the minimum amount. That's going to be a great tax plan for a lot of you, most of you. Again, what that amount is, speak to your financial planner. Sit down with them, create a really good tax plan for your retirement. And converting RRSP to a RRIF and drawing it down and using tax efficiency and leveling out your income in retirement is a big part of that. Now, to be clear, when you pull money from either an RRSP or a RRIF, that money is taxable. So if you take $8,000 out of your RRSP, that's $8,000 of income for this year. Same with a RRIF, $8,000 of income. So it's taxed the same. Now, where it differs is what's called withholding tax. Now, many of you think withholding tax is a penalty or an additional tax. All it is tax withheld at source that will be used to credit when you file your taxes. Think about it when you worked. You collected T4 income. You got your paycheck every 2 weeks, but guess what? They took off tax. When it came tax time in April and you filed your taxes, they said, look, you made X, but you've already prepaid this amount of tax, so either you get a small refund or you might owe a little bit of money, but all you're doing is prepaying some tax. That is withholding tax. And when you pull money from an RRSP, there is a withholding tax depending on how much you pull out. So the first $5,000 has a 10% withholding tax. From $5,000 to $15,000 has a 20%. And if you pull more than $15,000 out of your RRSP, there's a 30% withholding tax. Again, this is not a penalty or anything like that. This is just, I take $15,001 out. They're going to withhold $5,000. I'm going to collect $10,000, but at tax time, it's going to show I earned $15,000. I've already prepaid $5,000 in tax. Now, when it comes to pulling money out of a RRIF, the same thing. There is a withholding tax. The benefit with the RRIF is your minimum amount. So let's go back to our $200,000 RRIF account at age 65. $8,000 is the minimum. So on the minimum amount that you pull out of a RRIF, there's no withholding tax. You can pull that out with any withholding tax. Now, it's still taxable income. You will have to pay tax on it. It's not tax-free money, but you get more in your pocket up front. So again, if you were to pull $15,001 out of your RRIF account, the first $8,000, there's no withholding tax. On the next $7,001, there'll be a 20% withholding tax. So about $1,400. So now, instead of having $5,000 withheld, you only have $1,400. That means there's a lot more money up front in your pocket. Now, you always have to be careful of how much tax you actually owe. Work that out with your financial planner, because again, if you owe much more than $1,400, but that's all that's being withheld, you may have a big tax bill at tax time. But on the surface and money up front, it makes a big difference RRIF versus RRSP. So again, no withholding tax on the minimum RRIF withdrawal, whereas there's withholding tax on the full amount from $1 of an RRSP. So that's one of the big differences when you start drawing money out. And for a lot of you, when you hit retirement, especially 65 onward, your average tax rate's much lower. And then withholding tax a lot of the time is much more than you actually need to pay. And so you're kind of giving money to CRA to hold on to interest-free until you file your taxes. And that's one big reason why converting to a RRIF might make a lot of sense for you, just to reduce that withholding tax up front, put more money back in your pocket, and have a bit better cash flow management as you go through retirement. If you want to learn more about the withholding tax, so I know it can be complicated, check this video up above. Again, we'll link it below as well, but we did a full video on withholding tax. You really need to understand what it is, how it works, and really a lot of you truly believe it's a penalty, like it's an additional tax, which it is not. It's just like when you were an employee, they withheld tax, same idea. So again, check that video to learn more about the withholding tax on your RSP or RRIF account. Now, the last thing I want to say on this is some of you might say, yeah, but Adam, like I'm retired, but I might go back. I'm doing some consulting. That consulting income might be $20,000 to $200,000. I really don't know. Stuff's kind of all over the place. So a couple things here I want to highlight. First off, you can do a partial conversion. So if you have $200,000 in your RSP and you're not sure what your income will be going forward, and maybe you don't want to trigger kind of a minimum RRIF. I understand that. It's a tax planning strategy. You can always convert partial. So if the plan this year is, yeah, I know my consulting is going to be lower, maybe it's November, December, you move X amount, maybe it's 5 or 10,000 from your RSP to the RRIF. You don't do the whole 200. So there can be a partial conversion from your RSP to RRIF. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. So it could be year-end tax plan. If you're still working part-time, have some money coming in, but you're not sure how much, a great strategy here is work throughout the year. At the end of the year, sit down with your financial planner, say October, November, figure out how much you've made and how much you should pull out of your RRIF for that year. Let's say it's $10,000. Move $10,000 from your RSP to a RRIF, pull it out of the RRIF. Again, less withholding tax, no fees to do that, and income splitting should that qualify for you. Now, there's another very small handful, but there's a handful of you out there as well that are saying, Adam, if I convert my RSP to a RRIF and life changes, I go back to work, I'm stuck with this RRIF. I don't want to draw money out of it going forward until I have to. Well, you can always convert your RRIF back to an RSP. And I've heard from a few of you just on phone calls and comments that my financial institution says I can't. Well, CRA says you can, and those are the rules. So if you convert to a RRIF and life changes, you go back to work, you don't want a RRIF because you don't want that minimum amount, you don't need that taxable income, you can always move it back to an RSP. The year that you do that, there will still be a minimum amount, but all years going forward up until age 72, there'll be no RRIF minimum. So again, if life changes, which I know it can happen, you can always convert it back. So partial conversion and rolling it back from an RRIF back to an RSP, again, that's less than 1% of the population, but if that's you, rest assured that you were able to do that. So as you enter into retirement, and again, the majority of Canadians walk into retirement with a registered savings plan, an RSP. If that's you, you need to understand A, how it works, but B, when should you convert it? And the way to figure that out is to sit down and create a retirement plan, a cash flow plan. Where does your money come from? Like, do you have enough to retire? Where does it come from? How do I do it tax efficiently? When should I start drawing, RSP versus TFSA versus CPP, OAS, all these moving parts. This is all part of your retirement plan. So make sure you have a clear plan. But when your plan shows you should be drawing out your RSP, convert your RSP to a RRIF and start drawing it out. So hopefully this helps you. If you're sitting there with an RSP, not sure what to do with it, when do I convert to a RRIF? Hopefully this answers your question. Typically, it's a lot sooner than a lot of you think. We'll see you in the next video.